Alrighty, what is up? I'm gonna be giving you a little bit of a Logic Pro 9 tutorial today. I'm gonna teach you the basics of using Logic and teach you some of the basics of writing songs within Logic and recording MIDI information and instruments and recording audio. So I already have Logic Pro open here. I'm gonna open up a new project. So the first thing that happens when you open up a new project is you're presented with this screen. So you can choose any of these three options. Explore and brings up these set of options. There's different options here, but for our purposes, we're going to just select empty project. The first thing you do when that comes up is it brings up the screen, and you have the option to create a new track or multiple new tracks. You can choose audio, which is fairly straightforward. It creates a new audio track in your arrange view here. You can choose to make a new software instrument or create an external MIDI track. We're not going to deal much with external MIDI today because I'm not using any external MIDI devices. But we're going to start with a software instrument. So click software instrument, and based off whatever sound device you're using, if you're just using your computer or if you're using an external mixer via USB or Firewire, you choose your output here. In my case, I'm using a mixer, so I'm going to use stereo output to the mixer. Create. Alright, so we have this new track that's created and all these options that are presented, but I'm not going to talk about that quite yet. I'd like to show you around Logic a little bit. So I'm going to close this out. This brought up the media setting, so we're going to close that out. So here we are. We're in the arrange view. This is a track. I can create more tracks. I'll just drop an audio one in there for the meantime to show you. We have different kinds of tracks. In our arrange view here, we have measures. So this is going to be tracks over time, and that's what's going to create our music. So we have this setting here on audio called input. Basically, if I select input, it shows me what I'm putting through this audio track without actually recording anything. If I click record enable, I'm not going to deal with that right now, but if you click and record enable, it brings up the ability to record into Logic. Turn that off. The other options we have here are mute, which mutes the track when you're playing all the other ones, or solo the track, which makes it play by itself. We might be using those a little bit later when we're working with several instruments in an audio track, but for now we're not going to deal with those. I'm going to delete that. I deleted that by clicking on it and hitting delete on a Mac. On PC, it would be backspace. So as I said earlier, this is time, and we're dealing with measures here. So this is first measure, second measure, third measure, etc. And then within this arrange view, the different musical elements that are going to appear are going to be clips. We'll be dealing with those a little bit later when we start recording into it. But if you're using software instruments or MIDI, it'll show up as little clips with blocks of MIDI notes that dictate and show what is going to be played. And then if you're dealing with audio, it shows the audio waveform, the audio file that was actually recorded in. And it's in a little box. You'll get to see it later. While I'm on the subject of arrange, I should talk about the transport controls. So down here we have the controls that transport you while you're creating and dealing with your music. So here's the obvious one. Stop, play, pause, and record. Here's forward. Here's rewind. Here is play from selection. And basically whatever you have selected, it'll play from that. I might show you use of that later if it comes up. And then here's go to the beginning of the piece, which can also be achieved by double tapping stop. Another thing you can do to while you're transporting, if you want to do a shortcut, to start and stop, you can hit the spacebar. That's when you're not using the cycle, which loops the same thing over and over. it will start up exactly where you left off if you stopped it with the spacebar. If you're in the cycle view, it'll start up at the beginning of the cycle. You'll see that in a little bit. So I want to show you some of the other views here. So we've also got the mixer. This is going to deal with all the different tracks. Within the mixer, we have the setting, which is basically what instrument or what's being used. We have EQ, which is a fancier version of the EQ you have in your car. So in your car, you're going to have bass, mid, and treble. On this, we're going to have the ability to manipulate individual frequencies. Moving down, we have inserts, which can be a variety of things. It could be anything affecting your volume, or it could be adding different effects. It's basically anything that's not the original clip or track that's being added to the sound of it. Send is similar. We're not going to talk about that today or use it, but it's the same thing, except you can send multiple tracks to one send for them all to have a uniform sounding effect. Input and output is right here. So this is the input instrument, and this is what we're outputting it to, stereo out. We have the level. This is going to be essentially the volume. When you're dealing with a DAW, digital audio workstation, it's all going to be related to the full scale, decibel scale. So 0 is the absolute digital maximum of sound that you can have. You don't want it to exceed this point because it starts sounding ugly and it overloads your system. So anything below 0 is referred to in negative. So going down, we're going to have 11, negative 11 or negative 6, and this is basically subtracting from the max volume that you could have. And in most mixing cases, what you're going to have to do instead of boosting the volume is actually going to be subtract volume. Let's set that back at 0 for now. And then we have the master track. This is where all the other tracks are routed into. You have the master fader here. These are called faders when you're dealing with volume, and then these are obviously knobs. This is pan. We're not going to deal with that today. But here's the master fader, and then anything else that goes on in the master channel, the mute. Moving on, here's the sample editor. You'll deal with that when you're working with audio. I'm not going to deal with it a whole lot today because this is a beginner tutorial. Here's the piano roll. It's going to be where you're editing all your note information for your software instruments. Within the piano roll, this is what it's called, you have a piano on the left side, and it shows all the notes that you could deal with. All 127 MIDI notes, starting at C -2 going up to the octave of C8. There are 127 MIDI notes, and along with that, there are 127 different MIDI velocities. Everything in MIDI is related to 127. I don't know why that's not opening right now. It'll probably open later. So the MIDI note, when it's activated, tells an instrument to turn on a certain note. When it's turned off, it tells the instrument to turn off that note. When you're dealing with drum sounds, it kind of ignores the off trigger and just uses the on to trigger the drum sound and lets the drum sound decay. There are certain situations where that's different, but generally that's what you're going to want to do with percussion sounds. All right. So we have two other views here, score and hyper editor, but I'm not going to deal with those at all in this tutorial. So when we first opened this up, we got an electric piano. In order to play that, you have to have a MIDI keyboard, or you can use the caps lock setting, which opens up a virtual keyboard. So I'm going to hit caps lock here. And it opens up this virtual keyboard that you can play with your computer keyboard. So if I were to play an A, it's a C. So C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. and then you have the sharps and flats up here. And if you want to change the octave, you can use the buttons here. If you want to change how loud it is, you have these buttons down here. So that's pianissimo. Can barely hear it. And all the way up to fortissimo. I'm going to put it back down to mezzo forte. I'm going to close this out, however, because I have a MIDI keyboard which is hooked up via USB. So I can play all the notes that I want because I have a USB MIDI keyboard. So first thing I'm going to want to do to start working with a song is I'm going to want to open up a drum track. I'm going to want to create a drum track to work with. So let's click on this, go back to media like we had open earlier, library, and we have all our different presets of sounds and instruments we could be using here. For a beginner tutorial, I think this is good. You can delve into much more complicated instrument creation with synths, but as a beginner, you're just going to want to deal with the basics and kind of get used to it. So I'm going to go to drums and percussion, ultra beat drum kits, and let's see. There's all these different options here. But I'm going to go with electronic dub. That's the sound I kind of like. I'm going to deal with that today. I like that. And I'm playing these notes with different notes on my keyboard. So C1, I believe. Let me check that real quick. Yeah, so C1 is the kick drum, and then D is the snare. The tempo of the song I'm going to want to deal with is a little bit faster than what's offered down here currently. I'm going to want to record in a drum beat, but in order to get it to the right tempo that I want, I can click and drag this tempo up and down. I want it about 150 for what I'm doing today. And I'm going to turn the metronome on over here, the click, to see if that's the right tempo for me. Yeah, I like that. Next thing I'm going to want to do is record. I want to record a little MIDI clip. So you can record by just hitting the record button and it'll start recording. And for most situations this is good. Like for audio, you're not going to want to loop. But since I'm recording drums, I'm going to want it to loop a 4-bar or 8-bar section. And then after I record something simple, add another element to it, and add another element to it as it plays over and over. This is nice with recording drums, so I don't have to deal with more than a couple drum sounds at once. So how I'm going to do this, right-click on the record button. And there's different record settings here. So record just records it normally. Record is where you can hit play and then hit R to record, and it'll start recording while you're playing, and then hit R to turn it off, and it'll keep playing. Or record, record, repeat. And record, record, repeat makes it so that you record, you're hitting R, and then hit R to end. And if you don't like what you had originally, it'll give you the ability to play over it. So I like that. I'm going to go record settings now, and check and make sure everything's good. So you can change the amount of counting you have. I like 1 bar. It works for me. MIDI. Alright, so MIDI record information. There's all this stuff. I'm going to do merge only in cycle record. This is going to be good for what I'm doing here. So I have it set so it's merged. Now I want to loop an 8-bar section that I can just keep recording over. How I'm going to do this is I'm going to go down here and hit cycle. It's going to activate the cycle brackets. I'm going to extend this so it goes for 8 bars. Let me close out the piano roll for now. Make this a little bit bigger. So now I have the drum track, which is going to loop for 8 bars when I record. So just playing around with some of my sounds here and drums. Let's see what I can come up with. I'm just going to hit R to record and try to come up with a beat. Alright, so I like that. I messed up a little bit, but I'm going to be able to fix that later. I'm going to try to find a new sound to add here. Let's see. Alright, so I just added a hi-hat there. I'm kind of liking that. Maybe I'm going to try to find a cowbell sound or something. Alright, I hit spacebar to stop. This is really sloppy. I'm going to go in here, open it up in piano roll, and fix some of this. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to fix the bass drum. Click on the key that the bass drum's on. C. And you can see that it's a little bit off. The kick doesn't start right away because this is before the first beat and it doesn't activate quite right. How I'm going to fix this is I'm going to quantize, which basically fixes MIDI notes to the nearest beat that I choose. I'm going to choose 16th notes because I like dealing with 16th notes. It works well for me. So I selected those and I just changed to 16th notes. And you see how it fixed it so it lined up on the grid perfectly. I'm going to do the same for the snare here. So 16th note, quantize. Sounding way better already. Let's check out my hi-hat here. That just does not work. Let's do the same thing. Quantize that. That's sounding better. Let's check out the cowbell. I'm going to move this a little earlier. I'm going to click on it and drag to the left to see how that sounds. I'm going to put my time marker right there and hit play from selection because I don't want to hear that whole thing again to check this out. Ah, no, I did not like that. So let's move this. Let's try right there. Nope. That's really sloppy. I'm gonna quantize this different hi-hat real quick, just to tidy things up a little and see what I'm dealing with here. So let's stop. Let's play around with some of this stuff and see what I come up with. Play from selection. Let's see what I got. Delete. Let's command click to add a new drum beat there. See how that sounds. That's interesting. I'll deal with it for now. See how that sounds. Let's do this. I'm gonna like that, I think. Yeah, I like that. So, let's shrink the piano roll for a second. And you see we have all this extra space here because we have the count in. Let's take that down so it's just on the first measure. So now we have a pretty good drum beat. Let's add a bass. So add a new track, software instrument, create. We're presented with the same set of options. Let's go to bass. And here's all the different options. We got acoustic bass, electric bass, synth bass. I'm going to grab a, how about, progressive house bass. That sounds good. I like that. Let's close that out. I'm going to play around with it while it's looping, just to test it out, see what I come up with. Alright, so I think I've got something I like. I'm going to record it. Just get this tutorial going. Alright, I like that. I accidentally added a little beat here before I needed to. I do not need that beat. And now let's quantize everything. Command A to select everything. Q to quantize. Now, you can also quantize as you record, and you can do that with turning this on up here. So let's go to the 16th note. Boom. I like that. All right, now we're making progress. Let's add a rhythm instrument. Add another software instrument. And let's add synthesizer. Synth brass. How's that? Digital brass. I like that. Ooh, I like that a lot. Let's close up media. Close the piano roll for now. Have everything record enabled. All right, let's try this. I'm going to try some... Oh, by the way, I'm in F minor, so I'm going to try some F minor horn stabs. I goofed up a bit. So I'm going to open up the piano roll and quantize everything real quick. See where I went wrong. So that's off. And that's where I went wrong. Let's try it from there. Alright, that's way better. Alright, I think I'm making pretty good progress here. So now, I'm going to add some audio. Go up here, add new track, audio track. It's going to give you some slightly different options here. If you're recording with stereo settings, if you're recording through a mixer and you have stereo stuff going in, or you even have surround sound stuff, you can select those settings. I'm dealing with a mono microphone, so I'm just going to deal with one input, and then my stereo output like normal. Oh, whoops, keep doing that. Stereo output. I'm going to record enable as soon as I open it up, and check that out. I want to record. I'm going to save as Matt Vokes. Alright, save. Cool. So I have it record enabled now, and you can hear, since I'm using speakers, that it's got a weird sound. I'm going to pop on some headphones when I record. So I've got an idea of a vocal thing I'm going to do. I'm going to try it out real quick. So, turn on my speakers. And here I am in headphones. Alright, here. Got it in headphones. Turn that off. Alright. I'm going to try this out. Whoa, yeah. Oh, whoa, whoa, whoa. Yeah, 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 yeah. All right. I think I like that. I'm going to turn the speakers back on and start playing with this and see what we can do. See how that sounds. So that's pretty good. Now, you kind of tell the sound. It's some instruments are too loud, some instruments are too quiet. Like my vocals right now, they're really quiet compared to the bass. So in order to fix this, we're going to go to the mixer. And for every, I should have mentioned this earlier, but for every instrument you're using, you see it's just the one mixer track you're dealing with at the moment and the master track, the output. So we're going to open up the mixer and start playing around with some of the volumes here. You see our output is kind of, it's a clipping here. It's 5 decibels over what it should be. So we're going to have to do some stuff to fix that. I'm going to select all these real quick. Shift, click, shift, click, shift, click. Turn all these down briefly. Oh, my metronome's still on. Let's turn that off. So let's see what can be louder, what can be quieter. So we're making progress. It still doesn't sound quite right, though. I'm going to show you some stuff that's going to help fix this. So the vocals, as you can see in the recording here, some parts are louder and some parts are quieter. What we can do to fix that for volume is add a compressor. So insert, click on that. Let's go down to dynamics. This is going to change. This is going to be the section that's going to change volume. The inserts are going to just be any plugin or program that you're using to modify the track further than what the clip and the track have done. So let's go to Dynamics here and go to Compressor, Mono. So it opens up this compressor here. I'm going to solo the audio. Whoa, yeah. And what's happening here is we have a threshold. Whoa. And as we lower the threshold, we create this point at which if the audio crosses, the volume will be reduced. So right now we have it set well, it's 2. So if you have it all the way down, it's 1 to 0, which basically means nothing's happening. If you keep doing this, turning it up and up and up and up, for every, right in this setting, for every 3.2 decibels, the sound goes over this threshold here of negative 10.5 decibels, the 3 decibels will be reduced to 1. So we can see that in the gain reduction here. Whoa, yeah. The sound is crossing the threshold in volume and being reduced for every 3 down to 1. And for 6 down to 2 decibels. So you can kind of see how that would work. The knee just makes it softer or harder. I kind of like it 0.7. And I like, for my vocals, I like a negative 12, negative 14 kind of range, and a 3 to 1 ratio. Whoa, yeah. I like that, but we're still not quite loud enough. So let's go over here to auto gain. You're going to see we have a gain of 4 decibels. But if we turn on auto gain, so it's going to make it the maximum volume it can after shrinking down the loud parts. So we've shrunk down the loud parts to the same volume as some of the quieter stuff. Now we have the ability to raise the volume of the whole track, and this will do it automatically. So check this out. This is before. Whoa, and then this is after. Yeah. Oh, whoa, whoa, whoa. Big difference. And you can't really do that by just turning up the volume on your audio track. Whoa. But now it's a little bit too loud, so let's turn that down. Whoa. Some stuff we could do to spice up the vocal track would be to add a delay. Let's go down to delay here. And delay is kind of like a bouncy echo. So you hear the sound, then you hear repeated sounds after it. So let's try this plugin, Mono Echo. Whoa. Oh, wow. Way too much. So let's maybe change the amount of time after the original sound hits until the next sound hits. So let's try quarter notes. So every quarter note is going to have an echo. Whoa. Still a little bit too much, and we're still clipping there a bit. So we have 2 different parts of the signal. We have dry and we have wet. Dry is the original signal that we have. Turn down wet so I can show you. Whoa. That's the original signal sending in. Wet is the signal after it's been modified by this plugin. Whoa. Kind of got a cool echo. I want it at 100% dry, and let's turn the wet down, maybe like 30% or so. 29, good. Whoa. Just kind of settle in the background. It's still a little bit too much. Let's try turning the amount of repeats down. Maybe around 30, same kind of thing. Whoa, yeah. Oh, whoa. Turn repeats up to 40, turn down wet. Whoa, yeah. Oh, I like that. So now, let's add a new insert. Let's add a reverb. This is going to make it sound like it's in a room of a certain kind. So let's go to Space Designer, kind of a stereo. It's going to open up the plugin here. And you'll be able to switch between plugins with inserts within the same channels, within the same track by just showing show insert, echo, compressor. All these things are open. Let's go back to Space Designer, create the space for it. So in this, the dry wet is called dry and reverb. That's not really that big of a difference to be worrying about. This kind of looks complicated. We're not going to delve into a lot of the complicated stuff of this. I'm just going to show you where to find your presets, which are going to be the best asset to a beginner. So if you click on here, oh, here we go. We're going to have at the bottom here all these different presets you can access of different sounds. I'm going to go with like a nice hall. That sounds nice. Medium spaces, hall, cool. Let's see how that sounds. Whoa. That's sounding a little bit better, but I think we have a bit too much wet. Let's turn that down. Whoa, yeah. Oh, whoa, 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 yeah, yeah, yeah. I like that. And most of these plugins are going to have a bypass function, so you can turn on and turn off the plugin really quick to see how it sounds with and without it. So I'm going to try with and then without. Oh, yeah. Oh, whoa, whoa, whoa. Big difference. So now let's hear how that vocal sounds with the rest of the track. Whoa, yeah. Add some reverb to the trumpets over here too. Space Designer. Let's get a different reverb on there just to show you what we have to offer. Large spaces. Go outdoor spaces. Small tunnel. Sure. Let's try it. See how it sounds with just the bigger reverb. See how that sounds with the rest of the track. Whoa, yeah. Oh, whoa, whoa, whoa. Yeah, 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 yeah. As a beginner, I'm not going to teach you advanced mixing. You don't want to have this clipping. However, to fix minor clipping problems like 1 decibel, I'll show you this little trick. Insert, dynamics, limiter, stereo. Limiter makes it so it will not exceed, the volume will not exceed this output level here. So we can make it to whatever we want, but 0 decibels, since that's the loudest we want to go, let's leave the output level there. So watch what happens now. Whoa, yeah. Oh, whoa, whoa, whoa. Yeah, 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 yeah. Whoa, yeah. Oh, whoa, whoa, whoa. Yeah, yeah. No clipping. I like this. So I think it's come to a point where I can send this to a MP3 file. So let's go to File and Bounce. We're going to bounce to an MP3 file. I have it selected here. You can have different options like PCM. If you do that, you can choose between AIF, WAV, CF, and stuff like that. I'm going to bounce to MP3 because it's the best compressed format. Everything else here is pretty good. Normalize makes it so that the max volume you hit will be 0. And you can do that with other stuff if you're not limiting. It's just good to have on in general. So I think all these settings are pretty well set up. I'm going to bounce. Cool. Now let's go to Logic in my music. Untitled. Well, I guess no, it's Mattvox, isn't it? Bounce. Output. Let's check it out. Whoa, yeah. Oh, whoa, whoa, whoa. Yeah, 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 yeah. And there my friends, I have showed you how to make a song. Thank you very much.